I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a hot, sticky, uncomfortable edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold all that against me. I hope you're all having a great Friday. It is so freaking hot in here right now. The air conditioning blew up in my house, so it's not working. Repair guy says it won't be ready for workingness until Tuesday or Wednesday. Temperature's about 105 outside. In my office, it's just a little over 90, I think, maybe 88. So there you go. That's my current situation. It's not good. And it's lucky this isn't video because, well, I was going to tell a joke, but that would be off color. Welcome to it. Welcome to Friday, July 29th, 2016. In preparation for this show, I was so unoriginal that I actually Googled, hotter than things that I could say. And and normally all the wonderfully witty things I've said previously on this show came right out of my brain, just so you know, but I'm just fessing up. I actually Googled it because I wanted to say something witty about how hot it is, and it was too hot for me to think of something witty because all I just kept thinking is just, it's hot. It's just hot. Stop being hot. So I Googled it. Yeah. I hate, at least I'm honest, right? And the first list that came up, the first thing on that list, hotter than a billy goat with a blowtorch. That's not even funny. What the hell is that? But apparently it is very popular with Southerners. There's a few others on here that aren't horribly appropriate. It's so hot I saw a squirrel putting suntan oil on his nuts. Hotter than Satan's house cat. Hotter than two hamsters farting in a wool sock. That one's kind of nice. Yeah. Hotter than Satan's toenails. That one. Hotter than a 4. Yeah, I can't do that one. I'm still rating the show as not adult, so I can't do that one. Hotter than a jalapeno's armpit. Hotter than hell's pepper patch. Hotter than hell and half of Georgia. Hotter than didn't I already say the devil's armpit? Did I not say that? I said somebody's armpit, yeah. No, jalapeno's armpit. So the devil's armpit's in there too. But anyway, that was the first list that came up. That's how hot it is here for me. And I realize some of you out there are probably going, you wimp. You don't know what heat is. Well, I don't care. I don't live where you live. So there you go. But it's super hot in here. And because I have a mixer and a computer and a monitor and everything on, it's getting hotter in this room. So let's jump right in. If you could take a minute out, head on over to www.therebelbroker.com. You can send me a message there. I appreciate any ideas, suggestions, observations, questions, whatever. Feel free to ask them using that tool at the website. And, of course, I'm still running the whole survey thing. So if you could take a minute out of your day and head on over to the website at www.therebelbroker.com, click on the big red button at the very tippy top of the website that says take the survey to support the show or support the show by taking the survey. It says one of those things. Go ahead and click that bad boy. Answer, I think it's 6 or 7 questions, 5 or 6 questions, something in that neighborhood, just to get an idea of the makeup of the audience, and that will profoundly help me. So thank you very much for taking a minute out of your day to do that. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the 10 worst investor rental markets right now that are in California. It's the 10 worst rental investor markets, and 7 of them are in California. And this comes down to a lot of the things we've talked about before in terms of where to smartly invest your money, right? A lot of folks will say, wow, properties have gone up and done all these other wonderful things in California. Well, if you're trying to do something now, that's not math that works for you horribly well. I'm trying to help a veteran right now to locate a house that they can afford. And, here we are, a day or two away from the weekend, and we're going to be looking at places on Saturday. And the number of homes across the entire area is very wimpy, and they're already disappearing, going off the market because they've gone pending. So it's a tough one out there, and prices continue to do their rise, maybe not as fast as they were earlier in the year or late last year, but still going up. So none of these things are good things if you're a buyer. But California now has 7 of the 10 worst markets to invest in single-family rentals, which I think really emphasizes that if you want to do this in California, you've got to be willing to play the long game. You've got to be willing to let the math tell you what makes sense, and don't get over. And this is one of the key things for any investor, is not to let yourself get overwhelmed or caught up in the process of needing to get something. I'd rather have you get something intelligently than get something you're going to regret down the road. Now, the list is released by Home Union. They're an online residential real estate investment management firm, and they analyze first-year single-family residential returns or cap rates in each market. The cap rate is the relationship between an investment's property's net operating income, rents less expenses, and the market value of the property. According to Steve Hovland, Home Union Director of Research Services, quote, throughout mid-year, owners of single-family residential investment properties benefited from healthy returns in many markets nationwide, but especially in markets located in the Midwest and the Southeast. So those are the areas where people are tending to find the best deals. He goes on to say SFRs, single-family residential homes, are outperforming many other investment vehicles, including bonds and gold. As interest rates remain low after the June Brexit vote placed downward pressure on U.S. Treasuries, bonds and other investments will continue to be low-yielding assets. Now, they talk here for a minute about cap rate on each one of these things. And cap rate is it's basically the net operating income to a property. And it's the ratio of net operating income to property asset value. Does that make sense? So how much you made, the net income you made, ratioed with the property asset value. So in other words, you would take, here's the net operating income of, let's say it was $100,000, and then you would divide that by $1 million, which would give you 10%, if the $1 million is what the value of the asset is. So that's a little bit different, right, from ROI, return on investment, or other ways that folks will use to calculate what they're using with their money, like how well your money is. It's most folks like to track how much money they've got into it, and then what the return on that investment is, right? So just so you understand how they're reporting this number. Oh, before we jump into it, I wanted to do a shout out to a listener who emailed me. And, I don't think he's going to have a problem with me mentioning his name, but he brought something up about the show yesterday. This is from a real estate agent in Folsom, California, really kind of up in my old stomping grounds from when I lived there in the late 90s. But he's Scott Blasius and a realtor at McKiernan Realty. I'm assuming, I usually like to check with guys before I give out their names, but I have a feeling Scott wouldn't have a problem with this. If not, I apologize, Scott. We did some back and forth, and it was kind of an interesting point. Yesterday, we talked about termite reports as one of the things as a corollary to doing home inspections, and how predominantly you need one anyway, because that's what a lender is going to require. And his message was an interesting thing that he has seen. He gave me the heads up that, quote, we've not made pest inspections a part of our purchase contracts for some time now. Lenders have not required it as part of the contract at all. If we represent buyers, we still advise them to do a pest inspection so that we can at least know what we expect and then negotiate with the seller on any Section 1 repairs that may be needed. he goes on to say, when I represent sellers, I always make sure they do a pest inspection prior to the list so that we are not surprised during escrow. So we went back and forth a little bit on that because my experience has actually been a little different. I have had banks absolutely require that we have a pest inspection. And I have a sneaking suspicion that there may be type of loan differences here. I know that for my VA, I was unable to avoid doing a pest inspection. If you're able to go in and this is why I wanted to kind of check back in on this one, because this could be a big deal. As a buyer, if you discover that the kind of loan that you're qualifying for isn't going to require you to do a termite inspection, you absolutely need to use that as a negotiation chit, or chit, C-H-I-T, or chip in the process, and let the seller know that this is not contingent on a termite inspection, because I've had all of the transactions I've done over the last year, a termite inspection was required. It was something that the bank mandated that it had to be done. But this is also a situation where, and I'm wondering if that's a difference between the kind of business that Scott's been doing versus what I've been doing over the last year, is these were relatively low down style purchases. These weren't folks putting down 20%. These were folks putting down 3%, some lower money invested in the game kind of things. And it would seem to me that those are the kinds of loans where lenders may not worry quite so much about a termite inspection. But I have done loans with Wells Fargo recently where they absolutely require. I mean, it wasn't even a question. It wasn't like I assumed that a termite was required, so that's what happened. It was they didn't get the termite paperwork and came knocking, asking for it. So he's in a different market. I mean, he's still in California, though. So, but he's up in Folsom, which is north of Sacramento. So there may be regional differences here. I know that there's different regional calculations in terms of interest rates and other types of things, but I think it's super interesting that Scott is seeing a market where he's not having to do termite inspections as often as I have seen it. Now, I'm not a super high volume guy. I'm not doing 10 deals a month. I tend to be a much more lower paced guy. So I'm not out there doing quite as many deals as everyone else per year. But I'll tell you, over the last year, the let's see, I've probably done 8 to 10 deals, I think. None of those were ones where I wasn't required to have a termite inspection. I'm absolutely going to have as a line item on my list of things that I do a verification step to make sure that I'm required to do one for a particular lender. But that's always, in the initial contact I make with my clients' loan folks, that's one of those things that would come up. I talk about how I work through the process, how I keep them in the loop. So, it's one of those deals where it's always been assumed that the termite inspection was required. So it's super interesting to me that Scott's not seeing that up in his marketplace. So keep that in mind. Now, we are both California guys. We're California guys in 2 different markets within California. So what we can take away from this, the learn from this for anyone anywhere in the country, is find out what's going on in your local marketplace in terms of what lenders are requiring, and find out what's happening on different types of loans. Remember, we've talked about this before. Loans are like used cars, right? Or anything else. It's a product that's being sold. So some lenders, and just to sort of get a little history on this, there was a period of time right at the peak, just before everything went completely nuts, when I did have folks who could do a purchase and put down 3% and not have to do a termite inspection. I mean, that's how loose things had gotten. When everything burst and kind of went boots up a little bit, suddenly all those things clamped down. In fact, those and many other things clamped down in terms of, all the things that had to happen in order for folks to get a loan. So, and I hadn't seen in my business really much of a relaxing of a lot of those things in the stuff I was seeing in a hands-on way. However, I wouldn't be surprised if that sort of thing is happening if folks are coming in with 20% down, right? That would be a loan that would be far more secured, where the lender may not have the same level of requirements. And it may be something that is different from bank to bank and region to region within that bank. So it's a question to ask. Figure that out. Find out if it's something you absolutely are required to do. If you're not required to do it, still do it. But it's not necessarily something you need to pass on to your lender. You can be the one who makes the decision about how much it impacts your purchase decision, as opposed to the bank saying we will or won't give you money based on what that thing tells them. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there because I thought it was interesting and shows that there may be more variability in the marketplace of lending in terms of what's going on with termite inspection requirements. Which is actually kind of concerning, frankly, given some of the major stuff I've seen that needs to happen with some homes. All right, so covered that. Now let's go ahead and jump back into our discussion of single-family rental investors trying to make money in California, where it's not happening really for California investors. 7 out of the 10 worst investment markets are here in California. So let's go ahead and run down that list. But before we do, let's pause for a quick moment for this.
Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner-broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909.
Welcome back, everyone. I need to work on my comfort level with transitions into that little commercial thing. It feels awkward. It feels weird. I'm not a huge fan of doing it, frankly, but onward and upward, right? All right, so let's go ahead and cover these marketplaces and their cap rates. And we already talked about what makes up a cap rate. If you need to, get that info again, you can either rewind or you can just do a quick Google on cap rate. You'll find 101 different sites that are hot to tell you what the cap rate is. Higher the cap rate, the better. That's capitalization rate. And it basically tells you the percentage of money you're making versus how much you've got. And for me, the number is how much money do I have invested in it? What's the yield on the money I have in it? That's what I want to know, right? If I have $10,000 into a thing and I'm making $1,000 a year off of it, well, that's 10% a year, right? Well, that's pretty reasonable, and that's okay with me. That's what I like to use as my main measurement in terms of stuff. For me, it usually has far less to do with the quote unquote assessed value of the property. Although I know that's a lot of the capitalization rate according to property metrics, often just called the cap rate. And I'm reading this now, is the ratio of net operating income to property asset value. So, for example, a property was listed for $1 million and generated a net operating income of $100,000, then the cap rate would be 10%. That's frankly not the number I like to go with. I like to know what I'm making based on my investment in the property. So just to quickly summarize one more time, the capitalization rate equals the net operating income minus the current market value. Not the number I use, to be honest. When I'm focusing on it, I take the value as, or when I'm looking to analyze what I'm making, I want to know all the net, basically the net operating income, and then I want that as a ratio of the amount of money I have invested in it. So, that's the way I like to do it, because it's great to be able to say I've got more equity based on what the value of the property is, but for me, it's knowing I have $100,000 in cash, or I have $50,000 in cash. Here's what I could make if I invested this into this thing, right? It's about utility of your money. So I strongly encourage you to focus more on the utility of your money. If you could take $50,000 and you could make 10% a year on it investing in X, the amount you pay for the thing with $50,000, the actual value of the thing really doesn't give you any measure of utility in terms of your month-to-month cash flow situation, right? Now, it does in terms of you being able to say, is there value in the actual sales value of the property? Yeah, absolutely. And that's a thing as well. But you very rarely own the property outright. It's more about it's the utility of the cash in your pocket. And from an investment standpoint, that's what I prefer to focus on. Do I want at some point to know what the current market value of a property that I own is? Yeah, of course I do. It can give me an idea of how much leverage I want to have on that property. It can give me an idea of whether or not I've reached a point where it makes more sense for me to sell it and pull out money and invest elsewhere where I could get better utility from that money. But the bottom line is, even in that case, the utility I get out of that money is only the money that I don't owe on it, right? So if it's a $1 million property and I have $100,000 in it, I want to go off of the money that I've got wrapped up in it, which would be $100,000. Because when I sell it, if I sell it for the same amount of money, I'm going to get that $100,000 back. So I'm only going to have $100,000 to do something with, right? Does that all make sense? Thinking that way is easier for me. If someone else has a different way that facilitates them making better decisions, I am totally down for hearing about that. Okay, so let's get back into the list here. Number 10. These are the top 10 highest yielding markets to invest in for single-family residential homes. And they give a cap rate. Number 10, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with a cap rate of 8%. Number 9. Wow. Okay, sorry. I looked ahead on I had already read half the list. I hadn't scrolled farther than the other half, and I like some of those other areas. Anyway, it's an interesting list. Tampa, Florida, with a cap rate of 8% comes in at number 9. Greenville, South Carolina, with a cap rate of 8% comes in at number 8. Number 7, again, I like this city. Memphis, Tennessee. I don't know why. Memphis, Tennessee, with a cap rate of 8%. Not at number 1. We've gone down this list of calculating investments and all those other kinds of wonderful things. But, Memphis comes up pretty frequently and pretty regularly. It really makes me want to check out Memphis and see what's going on there. Anyway, cap rate of 8%. Cincinnati, Ohio comes in at number 6 with a cap rate of 8.2%. Number 5, Milwaukee, Tennessee, with a cap rate of 8.4%. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with a cap rate of 8.4%. Birmingham, Alabama, with a cap rate of 8.5%. Columbia, South Carolina, with a cap rate of 9.7%. Cleveland, Ohio, with a cap rate of 11.1. So those are great. I mean, and I love those kinds of numbers. That when you're talking about where you should be turning your eye for an investment purpose, I think things like cap rate are great in terms of being able to get a number that can give you an idea of how much you're going to get in terms of a return on your investment. Now, if we go the other direction with the top 10 lowest yielding markets, it's a different picture, and what's interesting is this tends to be a who's who of areas where people tell you this is where you need to invest. So let's go down this list because it's something we talk about on this show all the time. It's more about the utility of what you're doing. I'd much rather own 10 properties in a market with a better cap rate than $1 million property in wherever California that has a lower cap rate, right? It doesn't make sense. So don't think that you have to go for these dazzling, high-end, expensive markets, because when we read this list, you're going to go, well, holy crap, that's probably the exact same list of the most expensive real estate in the country. So let's go ahead and start. Number 10, Portland, Oregon, with a cap rate of 3.8%. Number 9, Sacramento, California, with a cap rate of 3.7%. Number 8, Seattle, Washington, a city we talked a lot about recently because I took a trip up there and we talked a little bit about the market up in Seattle with a cap rate of 3.5. Number 7, New York City, New York, with a cap rate of 3.5. Number 6, Oakland, California, with a cap rate of 3.5. Number 5, San Diego, California, with a cap rate of 3.5. Number 4, Los Angeles, California, with a cap rate of 3.1. Number 3, Orange County, California, with a cap rate of 2.7. Number 2, San Jose, California, with a cap rate of 2.6. And number 1 on our list, lowest cap rate, San Francisco, California, with a cap rate of 2.5. The article goes on to say, no one envies the plight of the home buyers in California who struggle against low inventory, high demand, and rising prices. Due to a recent rise in inventory, however, it could be getting slightly better. California pending home sales increased in June, the third straight month of annual increases, according to the California Association of Realtors. So it's about those numbers. You know, the magic is in those numbers, and it doesn't always point to these sexy, glamorous places where you hear about all these crazy increases in property values. It's all about that cap rate and all about the amount of return on your investment. And the bottom line is, if the only way the California market works for you is if you can get in your freaking tardies and travel back to 2008 or 9 or 10 or even 11 and buy yourself a property then, because stuff now is nuts. So if you're trying to buy something now and turn it into investment, the problem is you're married to this higher point. And you have to come to this conclusion of, well, you either have to decide, you know what? The market's always going to go up. It might have these intermittent periods of down, but it's always going to go up in the long term. And historically, that's been proven to be relatively true. But the bottom line is being smart about how you leverage your investments. So it makes it tough to make a good argument that a lot of these areas that have these low rates of return make any kind of sense when there are areas with so much better rates of return. I'd love to find out what the number is on Redding. We talked about Redding, was it yesterday or the day before? And I suddenly have a bug in my bustle to go check out Redding. I'm thinking about doing a road trip this weekend with my sons and dragging them up to Redding. Hey, kids, we're going to Redding, and just see how it looks. Since it would be impossible or difficult for me to jump in my car and drive out to Memphis, that would be a little bit of a longer investment of time and effort. But anyway, so who knows? Maybe Monday we'll have a chat about Redding and how much I now love it and want to buy an investment property there. Simply because of the price point. The barrier is so low to get in there. It'd be nice to see what kind of return one can make over there. So maybe we'll have some insights. All right, folks. Again, absolutely appreciate you making the show a part of your daily routine. It only grows because you folks make it grow, and I truly appreciate that. So thanks for listening. I'll talk to y'all next time.